One need not possess the prophetic gifts of Cassandra to observe that the American imperium, that self-appointed guardian of global democracy and free enterprise, has begun to consume itself with the voracity of Saturn devouring his children. The symptoms of this autoimmune disorder are everywhere apparent to those who have not been narcotized by the endless stream of digital pabulum that now passes for public discourse. What we are witnessing transcends another cyclical crisis of capitalism, those periodic convulsions that Marx so tediously catalogued, and represents instead the spectacular immolation of a system that has mistaken its own reflection in the stock market for the face of God. Consider, if you can bear it, the grotesque spectacle of American healthcare, where the world's wealthiest nation has somehow contrived to make the preservation of human life a luxury good, rationed according to one's ability to navigate Byzantine insurance bureaucracies, or, failing that, to crowdfund one's own chemotherapy on social media platforms owned by billionaires who pay less in taxes than their secretaries. Here we have achieved what no foreign adversary could have managed, the transformation of illness into bankruptcy, of misfortune into financial ruin, all while maintaining the fiction that this represents the pinnacle of consumer choice. The average American diabetic, contemplating the monthly ransom demanded for insulin, a drug discovered a century ago by researchers who sold the patent for $1, might be forgiven for wondering whether this is what victory in the Cold War was supposed to look like. The lords of Silicon Valley, those pasty sovereigns of surveillance capitalism, have managed to convince an entire generation that their algorithmic feudalism represents liberation rather than servitude. These digital oligarchs have erected vast empires of extraction that surpass even the ambitions of the Gilded Age's robber barons. They have transformed human attention itself into a commodity to be harvested, packaged, and sold to the highest bidder, all while maintaining the insufferable pretense that they are somehow saving the world, one privacy violation at a time. The same platforms that promised to democratize information have instead created echo chambers so hermetically sealed that millions of Americans now inhabit entirely separate realities, each more divorced from empirical fact than the last. Meanwhile, the financial sector, that great vampire squid wrapped around the face of humanity, to borrow Matt Taibbi's immortal phrase, has achieved a kind of transcendent uselessness that borders on the sublime in its sheer audacity. Having learned precisely nothing from the 2008 crisis, except that the government will always ride to their rescue, these masters of the universe continue to engineer ever more baroque instruments of speculation, each one further removed from any connection to productive economic activity. The entire economy has become financialized to such a degree that making things, actual, tangible objects that human beings might use, has come to seem quaint, almost primitive, compared to the sophisticated alchemy of derivatives trading and cryptocurrency speculation. The American worker, that forgotten hero of countless political speeches, has been reduced to a kind of precarious serf, juggling multiple jobs in the gig economy, a euphemism so transparently Orwellian that it barely merits deconstruction. The same corporations that have spent decades crushing unions and offshoring jobs now have the temerity to wonder why their workers lack loyalty and engagement. The social contract that once promised that hard work would lead to prosperity has been torn up and replaced with a lottery ticket. The American dream, that great mobilizing myth, has curdled into a cruel joke told by those who inherited their fortunes to those who will never earn one. Education, once the great equalizer and the engine of social mobility, has been transformed into a debt trap so exquisite in its cruelty that professional usurers might study it for inspiration. Young Americans now mortgage their futures for the privilege of obtaining credentials that may or may not lead to employment sufficient to service their loans. Universities have become hedge funds with libraries attached, their administrations bloated beyond recognition, while their adjunct faculties subsist on wages that Victorian factory workers might have organized strikes to protest. The very idea of education as a public good, as an investment in the collective future, has been abandoned in favor of a model that treats knowledge itself as a consumer product, to be purchased at ruinous expense. The infrastructure of the Republic crumbles while the wealthy retreat to their private enclaves, serviced by their private schools, private security, and private jets. The trains don't run on time because the trains barely run at all. The bridges collapse, the power grids fail, the water systems poison entire cities, and yet somehow there is always money for another tax cut for those who need it least. We have moved beyond mere inequality into a kind of economic apartheid that makes a mockery of any pretense to democratic governance. When the richest man in the world pays a lower effective tax rate than a public school teacher, we have abandoned even the pretense of justice for pure, unadulterated farce. The political system, captured entirely by corporate interests, offers no remedy but only a choice between flavors of exploitation. The Supreme Court, in its infinite wisdom, has decreed that money is speech, thereby ensuring that those with the most money have the loudest voices. The result is a democracy so thoroughly hollowed out that it resembles nothing so much as a cargo cult, going through the motions of popular sovereignty while the actual levers of power remain firmly in the hands of an oligarchy that makes the Venetian patriciate look positively egalitarian by comparison. Climate change, that final bill come due for centuries of industrial excess, looms over everything like the sword of Damocles, and yet the response from the capitalist class has been to double down on the very behaviors that created the crisis. Oil companies, having known for decades about the catastrophic consequences of their business model, chose to fund disinformation campaigns rather than adaptation. The market, we are told, will provide solutions as if the market were some benevolent deity rather than a human construct that reflects nothing more noble than the aggregate of our greed and short-sightedness. What we are witnessing is pure destruction without the creative prefix, the kind of senile dementia that afflicts empires in their final stages. The American military, spread across hundreds of bases around the globe, maintains a garrison state that would have astonished the Romans, all while the homeland deteriorates into what Mao might have recognized as internal contradictions reaching their inevitable conclusion. The empire maintains the capacity to destroy the world several times over, but cannot provide clean drinking water to its own citizens. The cultural superstructure that once provided at least the illusion of shared purpose has dissolved into a kind of nihilistic individualism that mistakes consumer choice for freedom and personal branding for identity. Social media has created a nation of performers without an audience, each person broadcasting their carefully curated desperation into the void, hoping that somehow their personal narrative will be the one that breaks through the noise. The commodification of the self has reached its logical endpoint. Everyone is an entrepreneur of their own misery. This is how empires die, with hedge fund managers in the citadel rather than barbarians at the gates, with a leveraged buyout rather than a sacking. The American empire will not be conquered. It will be strip-mined, sold off piece by piece to the highest bidder, until nothing remains but a husk. A cautionary tale told in Mandarin and Hindi about what happens when a civilization mistakes the map for the territory, the market for the society, the price of everything for the value of anything. The crowning irony is that capitalism, having defeated all external challenges, has no enemy left but itself. Like an autoimmune disease, it attacks the very body it inhabits, mistaking its own organs for foreign invaders. The result is a kind of necrosis, a dying from within that no amount of Federal Reserve intervention can arrest. The patient is terminal, and the only question that remains is whether anything can be salvaged from the wreckage, whether some new form of political economy can emerge from the ashes, or whether we are doomed to simply repeat the cycle, each iteration more farcical than the last. The American empire, that great experiment in democratic capitalism, has become a monument to its own contradictions, a warning to future civilizations about the dangers of mistaking wealth for worth, power for purpose, and markets for morality. What makes this ending particularly squalid is its vulgarity. The empire expires with all the dignity of a clearance sale. Everything must go, no reasonable offer refused, rather than with even the shabby grandeur that attended Rome's decline.